Did you meet any of the other domestics?
Yeah, I met one other lady who was working for this. Oh, besides this lady? No, not at that point. No, there weren't many of us around, and I didn't meet many. The Downies were they were in charge of the Jamaican Association at the time. And as was stated earlier, the people were looking out for each other at that time, because I would be invited to the meeting and I would be introduced to other people. But that group was more, quote unquote, more professional people in it, not so many people who are domestics, but people who are more highly educated and had a different status with government and that kind of thing. That was the kind of people. The interaction between the people were good, because it was a smaller group, and they seemed to know each other, or if they didn't, they welcome. It was a very welcoming place. And so later on, actually, the person who I met from this family, once my contract was up and I was out of there quite fast, her and I rented an apartment on Bank Street where we shared. I can remember, the floor was green and we had one of those old-fashioned tubs, and but it was ours. And so we stayed together for a while. And in those days, you could apply for, as a landed immigrant, you could apply to Manpower, and they would pay your way to go to school. So that's what I did to do upgrading, and so once I left, that's what I was doing academic upgrading, and then after that I went to started taking courses at Woodruff, which is a different campus, and then I went to Carleton and did my degrees. This I find is very important, that for me as well, that I really took time to educate myself once I got out of that situation. So I took that opportunity to really educate myself as much as I could, to the extent that I got 2 degrees in social work. But I never went to high school. So I came with an education level of grade 8. Because you had to have that in order to get into the country. That was one of the criteria, that you're between the ages of 18 and 35, and that you had at least grade 8 of education and you were able to pass the medical. Those were some of the things that were the criteria, some of the criteria. But I took that opportunity once I got here to really educate myself. And my friend, she had children when she came, that she left in Jamaica, so at some stage those children came, and so then we separated because the children were staying with her, and then I needed to find my own place. So then I started to share accommodation with other people. So that's one of the ways that I get to know Ottawa, because I lived in a lot of different places with different people, to share accommodation. But I think one of the things that I think is really important as well, is that the process of how the different group of domestic workers came. So in the 50s, there were a different group of people who came as a group. In my case, I came alone. I had no idea of what I was coming into, because there was absolutely no training. I did my own training in terms of doing my had a certificate in doing the domestic, taking I educated myself in terms of being prepared for coming here. But there was no preparation and no information. I didn't know there was winter. I didn't know what people want to eat. I didn't know what to expect from, because I had no idea. Because I wanted, as I said before, I wanted to leave. I wanted to start a better life for myself while I could. And so I did not do my own research. And so, and there was no information given to me either once I was told that I was accepted, Then I had an interview with, because they usually bring immigration officers from Ottawa to come down and interview people, and then you go and get your medical. But within that interview, there wasn't a lot of information about what to expect or anything like that. It was just most of the information was about you and your family and why you want to come and all. So the immigration officers would come down and would have interview with people who were accepted to migrate to Canada. In my case, I was interviewed alone. So there was not a group. I didn't come as a group. I came as an individual. And my process, I went through the process as an individual. The immigration rules had changed by that time, because the people who had come in the 50s could apply for landed immigrant status when they arrived and were in the country and been here for a period of time. They could apply from within the country. So after that, the rule changed, and when domestic workers were coming, they came on visitor's visa, and they could not apply from within. They were not allowed to apply from within for landed immigrant status. So there's just to make those two distinctions in terms of, that the rules really changed, because one of the reasons that they did that was that a lot of us who were coming had the option to stay in the domestic field or to leave and upgrade ourselves like I did and get out of the field completely. One of the main reasons they changed the rule from the women being able to apply for landed immigrant status from within the country was that the need was still high for these women. They were not staying in the field of domestic work. They were leaving and going to upgrade themselves or get other jobs. And so rather than the government working on changing how that could occur, they changed the rules. So people who came for example, after I did, I knew that before I came, so I made sure that I had my landed immigrant status before I came. But some of the women who came after I didn't. And so and a lot of them also were sponsored by the people who, when you apply at that agency or wherever, those people sponsored you and pay your way. So therefore, when you arrive, you're very dependent on your employer. So, and they would use some scare tactic about deportation when people would not do some of the things that they wanted them to do, like, for example, sleeping with someone's husband, getting raped, or sleeping with the dog, or having the child in the room when you in your room, so that when he cries or when the child wakes up, the parents don't have to get up, you do, type thing. So I have heard that from some of the other women, that their situations were different and were unique, in the sense that they were together and they had support and the government provided them with that. But women who came later, it was really quite not as good or as positive. So I know this because once I finished my school, I also worked with a CISO to support the women and advocate on behalf of the women, some of the women who had come after I had, and were going through some of these challenges. So I would accompany them to immigration when they have an appointment. I would identify for them doctors and doctor's appointment, and all these different areas where they needed support. I would accompany them to do that.